Hi, my name is Brian Stout, and I am the co-founder and chief product officer for iVALT. And today we're going to talk about one ID, one authenticator, and how these terms can be used and how they're coming together in identity for enterprise and for any application that requires identity. And this will streamline security across all use cases. With respect to iVault, we have 7 patents granted and 10 or more patents pending on the technology you'll see in this presentation. First of all, cybersecurity threats from identity really all center around who is really at the endpoint. And this really manifests itself into two different problems. And the problems are, first of all, stolen credentials. 80% of all cybercrimes start with stolen credentials, and these result in breaches, ransomware attacks, and identity theft. And so that this is a huge problem. And the second problem, which is getting worse with time, with AI coming on the scene, is enabled by manipulation and fear. And this is really fake communications, which is manifests itself in social engineering, AI deepfakes, and phishing attacks. And this is where people contact or hackers contact people and then use manipulation and fear to extract information and account numbers and move money, etc. So this is a huge problem. And why this is a problem is, first of all, on the stolen credentials side, there are only fragmented solutions. There's a lot of different ideas and concepts and smaller companies out there creating solutions to this, but credentials are remaining vulnerable. And then for fake communications, there are no reliable technologies. Phone, caller ID, etc., SIM swaps are all possible to fake communications and make it very difficult to stop that. And so, in order to create a paradigm shift in identity, really requires solving both of these problems at the same time. What we do is mobile-centric identity, and this enables identifying anyone, anywhere, at any time for anything, any application. And the idea is that your mobile phone gets a notification, and in one click, multiple attributes of your identity are passed back to the authenticator. And these things start with biometrics, where we capture Face ID or any other modality of biometrics. And we verify device ID, which is unique to every mobile device, a unique code for the user and the application that's being accessed. And then we allow for geofencing, which consists of GPS coordinates as well as time. So, for example, a place that you are going to be and the time that you're going to be authenticating. And then a whole variety of user dynamic variables, things like high-low temperatures in a city on a particular day, 3 days ago in my favorite city, etc. So those are, and there's a whole lot of those that can be added into this. So when you add all this together, you create this next generation of multi-factor authentication, if you will. And it's a combination of person and device ID plus this dynamic context that creates something very unique for a user and is very, very difficult to hack. And we've had many hackers look at this and they're convinced that this is the best solution out there for stopping hacking, especially since we verify these attributes independently. And so what this does, going back to my initial problems, is stolen credentials become worthless when you use biometrics at the endpoint, not to mention the other factors. And then fake communications can be stopped. I get a phone call and I say, hey, identify yourself with iVault if it's an employee in a company or someone else I have a relationship with and they have the app on their phone. They can identify themselves in 10 seconds, and I know that it actually is the right person. Even if it sounds like them, it could be someone else. It could be a hacker using AI deepfakes. And this is applicable again for any use case that requires identity. So why one identity and one authenticator? Well, a big point here is that multi-factor authentication really should be a part of identity. It should be one step and it should be one click. And so if you talk about one ID, the identity for any individual could be a registered phone with the capability to do biometrics and registered with biometrics, one username for everything. So it could be a mobile identifier or some other pseudonym for the mobile phone number. And then everyone has a unique set of dynamic factors, as I mentioned a minute ago. And this altogether creates a next generation of multi-factor authentication that actually is a part of the identity for the person. So on the Authenticator side, all you need is a device that's registered, and in one click you can verify biometrics and then passively capture and send all the dynamic context variables back to be verified independently, as I said before. So this independent authentication coupled with these unique factors make this nearly impossible to hack. And so it works like one ID request comes in from any source. It is a one-click response, and that creates an unassailable identity for the individual and for that particular transaction. So on-demand ID is a product that we have, and this is sort of the core of our functionality that we use for a lot of things, but it is a standalone product by itself, and it allows the ability to immediately identify someone in real time. So as you can see on the left side, it's any identity request. And again, this can be coming from anything. It could be coming from logging in. It could be me trying to identify someone on a phone call. It could be me in person for that matter. It could be any situation where I have to identify myself. And there would be some linkage to my registered mobile number. So that mobile number becomes the thing that is being verified. It goes to our platform, which is SaaS-based, hosted by AWS. And it's a single mobile app for any application, again. And what happens is to identify the person at the endpoint, we have a push notification, and then we have a one-click response. Now, this can be used in two different scenarios. One is for workflows, and this can be an authentication workflow. It also can be in a business workflow. So you get to a particular point and have to escalate identity to determine someone is actually who they are, or they're still on the line, or they're still logged in, etc., and verify them instantaneously using iVALT. That's one use case. And then the other one is real-time identity, as I mentioned before. I call Baldev up. He doesn't know if it's me on the phone. And he says, please identify yourself. And I do. And he knows immediately that it is me and it isn't just someone who sounds like me or someone trying to use social engineering or an AI deepfake. And again, we are the only reliable endpoint identity communication solution. There is nothing in the market today to do this, especially on the mobile phone call example. And what this allows is identity be verified. And it's important to note here too that this does not require, as a standalone, it does not require enterprise IAM integration to use this case. So for things like help desks, customer service, etc., this can be used to identify customers, for employees to identify themselves when they're trying to make changes to their accounts through the help desk. And this would have stopped many, many fraudulent cases and social engineering cases that are out in the market. Specifically, the MGM attack about a little over a year ago, where someone impersonating the CEO called the help desk and over the course of a little bit of time convinced them they were the CEO, and they changed the password, and the next thing you know, he had a ransomware attack. So that's how we can stop that. Okay, we are introducing a new product which we call DocuID Security. And what we've done with this is, because we have this mobile-based identity where we can identify anyone, anywhere, anytime, we have the ability to embed credentials for people who are authorized to access a document into the document itself, and then use that to authenticate, to link out and have the person verify themselves in real time using the multiple factors that I showed earlier. So the multiple numbers are embedded, or some pseudonym for the multiple numbers, and then also links can be sent, etc. Documents can be shared, but they only shared with the person that you put their mobile number in, and they have to uniquely identify themselves using biometrics and the other factors. And this is specifically useful for things like social media, anything that's posted online. And then also for digital communications like signatures and accounts and contracts, et cetera, and for things like business closings. And it can also be linked to government IDs. So we can verify an identity using so-called ID proofing and then use that as the basis for the identity. So when you verify yourself using biometrics and our other factors, you can be sure that that's tied back to uh, a paper trail, if you will, of documents that are referenceable for the identity. And this is cloud-based. All the documents are encrypted. It's highly restrictive of who gets access, and it proves authorship and ownership of the document and its history as well. We keep log files. It can be done for images, videos, and PDFs. PDFs is sort of the holy grail of this particular thing, and being able to protect documents much more securely than just a password in a PDF. And this is all in response to the initiatives of C2PA, which is an organization that is basically controlling the ownership and authenticity of digital documents. We also have a product we call Context ID, and this is really a complete solution for identity for enterprise IAM. And this is really the strongest identity protection you can have for an enterprise identity and access management system, where we can help for stronger security of identity for application logins, especially in situations where you're using credentials plus MFA, which is typically every enterprise login. And then also in what's called CIBA, which is client-initiated back-channel authentication, which is a mobile authentication using just the mobile number, using the mobile device as a trusted mechanism to log into the enterprise for a variety of use cases that cannot be addressed by using usernames and passwords. So what you get from this, if you look on the left-hand side here, you get next generation MFA, what I showed before, which is all these attributes can be used as a part of the login process. So you can enter your username and your password, which is typically your email address, and then some password, complex password. And then instead of using two-factor authentication, you ping the iVALT mobile app and you get all these other attributes back. So it's much, much stronger MFA, and you don't have to type any digits. It's one click, much simpler, easier user experience. And this solves a lot of problems on that side and be customizable, etc. And then on the other side for CIBA, these other use cases that I mentioned a second ago is that can't be done with username and passwords are things like customer service. I need to push someone's mobile number to them and make sure I have the right person on the other end of the connection. For access to IoT devices, when I'm in person, physical access, I swipe my key card, it pings my phone, I show my face, and then it lets me in. And then other things like kiosks, and then as an escalation point also for high value transactions. If I'm gonna wire transfer a lot of money, my username and password and even two-factor authentication is not enough for me. I want somebody to verify my biometrics and a few other things to make sure it's really me moving money to buy a house or something like that. And then we can allow on the enterprise context, um, we can use this mechanism for things like DocuID that I just showed, and then anything else that's integrated with iVault. Because once you enable the enterprise to use mobile authentication, which is what CIBA does, then anything that iVault can do from a mobile perspective can then be connected to the CIBA capabilities of an enterprise, which is really important as new services are brought out into the market. We also protect IoT devices and networks, and these are all over the map in terms of functionality and things that they do. And you can think of things like home networks for controlling your security system and your lights and that kind of thing. But also physical access, as I mentioned, for enterprise or for homes. It can be IoT and IIoT. We've done embedded code into devices. We've done cloud-based management systems for both ARM and RISC-V. And then for things like streaming services, we have patents on streaming services and smart TV type applications for one-click logins. And we're technology agnostic, so it doesn't make any difference what type of phone you're using, what type of TV. It doesn't matter. None of that is a dependency in the way that we do what we do. And it's important to understand here on the device side that we do person-to-device identification, so the device identifying itself to the person and vice versa, but also device-to-device IDs. And we have some really clever ways to do that we have IP around. And we can also use the dynamic variables as a part of that communication as well as protecting the identity of the endpoints. Okay, so solution components. The system is really comprised of three primary components. The first on the left-hand side is the ability to access what we have, and we do that by enabling enterprise IT and development teams to build new products and also to integrate easily with identity and access management platforms. And so we use Swagger for OpenID, Open API, and then we also have NPM for libraries, and then we have integrated with Okta, Auth0, and Ping, and these are standard protocol integrations that can be used for a variety of different services within the IAN environment. And then we have a SaaS platform, which consists of basically two pieces. One is the authentication piece, which we call the identity validation platform, which is run on AWS. All of this is on AWS. And then we also have an admin portal, which enables user management of all the users. And we call it ID Connect, which is where a unique tenancy, multi-tenant environment for each company. And then that connects to the users who then opt in. And so then we have a mobile app that is downloaded by the users. And then the user experience is a simple one click. And then we have all these capabilities here, and I'll touch on this in a minute of what we can do in the mobile app itself as a universal authenticator. Okay, so one of the questions people have is, okay, this all sounds great, but how do we get there from here? And the enterprise transition, it's important to understand this is on the existing infrastructure, so it doesn't require a swap out of an IAM platform or any of the authentication processes that exist already. So if you start on the left-hand side here, today it's basically username, passwords, and two-factor authentication digits. And the first step is the mobile app download. And what that does is that enables users to immediately get access to the applications that I showed earlier that don't require any infrastructure. So those things are things like Docu ID and also on-demand ID can be done immediately. So you can stop social engineering and AI deepfake attacks from the first installation of the app itself. Second is factors with the enterprise where you can start using SIBA and use this as part of the MFA implementation. And then third, you get to using mobile number as the username, and the users themselves can start setting up mobile MFA attributes. And this is all available today. So everything to the left of the blue line there we can do today. And then as we move forward this year and into next year, we can simplify enterprise IAM as an example in the one-click authentication because we capture attributes that include things like location and time and other dynamic variables. These are things that are typically used for RBAC, for role-based access control, and ABAC, which is attribute-based access control. We capture those variables in the first click. So that can be used in a one-step process instead of a multi-step process to give someone access to what they need to get access to do their jobs. So we can do this very simply. So this simplifies enterprise IAM quite substantially. And then last of all, users can control their identity attributes. And this is really the whole concept of identity wallets and being able to provide your healthcare information and that only to your healthcare provider. And then credit card numbers if you're making a purchase and financial information to your financial manager, et cetera. So all of the identity information about you can be stored, and this can be in blockchain and then released using iVALT. So there's a whole lot of things coming with respect to how you can give users control over their identity and then control that specifically through iVALT. Okay, Universal Authenticator app. This is an initiative that is underway at iVALT. The first three things you see here in terms of features, we have on-demand ID, which we already have, the ID connection, which is the multi-tenancy, and we also have a two-factor authenticator that we use already just to kind of make everything we do compatible with those already in the world. And then on the roadmap is FIDO 2 authentication. We've already done this, but we have not put it in the Authenticator itself. And then the ability for users to set their own geofences in time, and then also to do identity proofing, which we call Verify ID. So these are all available within a single authenticator app, which we believe is the next generation of authentication. So you have the request coming, and then our authenticator can authenticate whatever technology is being used and for whatever use case. So this consists of, we call it three-factor authentication because you have two-factor biometrics, or your three-factor authentication. You have two-factor with biometrics, which results in three-factor authentication. And so it's a one-click also, which makes it much easier than typing the 6 digits that you get from a two-factor authenticator. And then we have any application or use case, which is our ID connection. So each one has its own multi-tenancy. So we were able to manage that and manage the users and permissions, etc. And then enterprise IAM with all the appropriate protocols that I mentioned before can be mapped out and used directly by the app itself. And then we have FIDO 2, as I mentioned, and then ID proofing, and then the geofencing piece will allow geofencing not only for the user for logging in using standard online authentication, but for any of the applications. So anything that you're doing for identity can be geofenced and time windowed, including things like two-factor authentication and FIDO 2. We have 7 patents granted. Here's a list of them. They're all around mobile app, biometrics, connected devices, and cloud access. And then we have 10 or more. I think we have 12 to 14 patents filed and pending, and they're on a variety of use cases. And this is growing monthly as we add more patent applications in. And then we have multiple trademarks that we have filed, and we've received a number of them. We have 4 there that are already registered trademarks, and then we have 2 that are in process right now. So in summary, we're the only solution out there for identity fraud, social engineering, and AI deepfakes in a single mobile app. So you can you can stop the stolen credentials as well as social engineering and AI deepfakes in the same application. And then we have the only solution for critical document protection. Today, it's simply passwords at best. And we have the ability to create 5+ factors of identity. It can be done in real time to uh, manage critical documents and make sure that only the right people see the content. And then the last thing we have is it's fully compatible with everything out there with respect to identity and access management platforms. We have open AIs, and then we also have the ability to create next generation multi-factor authentication and CIBA as a part of the IAM platforms. So that's the summary of what we have. And I want to introduce Baldev Krishan, who's our founder and CEO at iVALT. And Baldev never says anything about himself, but I'll give you the update on kind of what he's done over his career. He's been in Silicon Valley for a long time. He's had multiple exits, successful exits. He was a pioneer in some breakthrough technology, specifically acoustic modems, embedded systems, and biometrics, with over 30 patents. And he was twice nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year in Silicon Valley during his career. So with that, I'm going to introduce Baldev. He's got a few words he's going to say here. Take it away,
Yeah,
Baldev.
thank you, Brian. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Sorry, we could not have a live because LinkedIn was having some technical difficulty. So much for this opportunity, and thanks, Brian, for a very extensive overview of iVault. And we are looking forward to developing a partnership with a number of companies. And if any one of you is interested, please feel free to reach us. And we also offer a 90 days of free trial for any of our partners to try any of our features which we listed. And we really look forward to working with you. And we believe that what we offer is really the future of identity. And this not only, we are saying that, some of the industry pundits are saying that our solution is really the future of identity, and it can be used for any use case, and it's very, very adaptive. And any feedback on the webinar will be greatly appreciated, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much for your time.